everyone, this is Sarah from Calypso Kitchen, and you are here today with me to learn a bit about Caribbean cooking. Today we're going to be making buljol. Sounds a little bit funny to some people. So what buljol is basically is salted cod. We're going to use salted cod and make a dish that's called buljol. In Trinidad, where this dish is made, we would serve buljol as a nice breakfast food or maybe sometimes for dinner. Salted cod is a really big part of eating in Trinidad and in the Caribbean as a whole, and that's because for a long time not a whole lot of people had refrigeration, so salted meats was a go-to meat because it's one that would stay in your pantry. So we actually get our salted codfish in Trinidad from Newfoundland, Canada. Yeah, it comes all the way from there. We trade rum and we get salted codfish. Lovely trade. Salted cod looks like when it comes out of the package. As you can see, it's just salted fish that has been salted. In the Pacific Northwest, we use a lot of smoked salmon, smoked fish, while in the Caribbean, we use a lot of salted fish. So it's basically a similar process as one uses smoke, one uses salt. So what we would do before we use this is we would boil this in water, and the boiling process is basically to take out a lot of the salt that has been put into that. So by boiling it, I'd boil this for about 20 minutes just to get the salt out of it. And if you were to try this recipe and you were to boil it for 20 minutes and you taste the fish and it's still salty, maybe the next time you want to boil it for a little bit longer, but typically I'd say between 20-25 minutes just to get the salt out of it. These are, as you can see, really very much caked with salt, so I'm expecting lots of salt in this. And now this is really very hot, so you really want to wait until it's a little cooled before you try shredding it apart. And that's the consistency we would want it for this particular dish that we're going to make. So that's what our cod looks like now that it's been unsalted. So what I've done is I've boiled my salted cod, and as the name implies, salted cod, it was really very salted. It had been salted tremendously to preserve. So what I've done is I've boiled it. And basically you want to put your salted cod in a pan with water, cover it with water, and then get that water to a rolling boil. After it's gotten to a rolling boil, you want to boil it for at least 15 minutes. But you want to lower the heat so it's not any longer at a rolling boil, but more at a medium boil. Allow it to boil, the salt out of the cod, and now it's gotten to the consistency where you can actually just, with your fingers, just go right ahead now and flake your cod apart, just like that. Warning, cod that comes out of hot boiling water will be very hot, so you want to be careful with this. But basically this is the consistency that you want your cod to be for this particular dish. Again, the name of the dish is buljol. And what buljol is just a mixture of your codfish with tomatoes, with bell peppers, with celery, with green onions, with onions. And we're going to bring all of that together with some olive oil. We're going to add some hot peppers to our dish as well. So there we go. There's our salted cod, really nicely flaked up. So that's how our cod looks, really nice and flaked. I guarantee it's not as salty as it was before we put it in the pan. And here we have some really nicely chopped tomatoes along with some bell peppers. We are also going to be using some hot peppers. We'll be using some slivered onions, some celery, along with some green onions, and this is just a really easy fix. We're going to take all our ingredients put them into our dish. You know, it doesn't matter in what order you put your ingredients into your dish. Those tomatoes were really nice and juicy. Lots of juices running out of them. And that's a good thing. Then we put in our green onions, our celery, our onions, and we're going to use a little bit of black pepper on top of this. We are definitely not adding any salt to our dish. And right on top of it, we're going to be adding our salted cod. Okay, so our salted cod is on top of our dish. The next step, we're going to heat some oil. So I'm using olive oil for this particular dish. Put your oil into a skillet and get that really nice and hot. And again, for me, this is how I always test, and it's because this is how my grandmother tested to see when her oil was heated. I'd put some onions into the pan, and as soon as those onions are nice and brown, we're going to transfer that oil into our dish and give this a toss. To finish this dish off, this is typically how we would have buljol in the Caribbean. We would have avocados with it. So when I'm finished with this dish today, when I'm finished tossing it, I'm just going to slice some avocados, put it on top of it, and then whenever, you know, whoever's serving themselves, they're going to take a nice scoop of buljol along with a piece of avocado. And the avocado really works very nicely. A slice of avocado, sweet avocado, with the contrast of the flavors of the salted codfish with the vegetable, really works nicely. In the Caribbean and in Trinidad in particular, where I am from and where we make this dish, we would use fried breads. So imagine having a nice, soft, fluffy fried bread with this buljol mixture on top of it or inside of it in a pocket with a slice of avocado. Really good texture, really good flavors, fresh, crunchy vegetables still with that nice salty, savory flavors coming out. So the oil is hot. Let's take our oil, and there we go. And again, that's a happy noise for me in this kitchen. It's the noise that I heard in my Grammy's kitchen. And now that the oil has been placed in, this is all you're gonna do. Gonna toss. Just toss this. Now I remember in my Grammy's kitchen when she made this particular dish, there was so many of us to eat that Grammy had to find ways to make this into a bigger dish that everybody would enjoy. So quite often she would shred cabbage and put shredded cabbage into her buljol, which is really a nice addition. So if you wanted to just make this dish with a little bit more vegetable in it, with a little bit more substance in it, and maybe even to cut a little bit of the saltiness of the cod, you can certainly add a lovely green cabbage, or maybe even a purple cabbage, to add a little bit of color and texture to the dish. So there we have it, folks. This is a Trinidadian buljol in its simplicity, but in its divine simplicity, because this is absolutely delicious. So there we have it, some really nice slices of avocado on top of our buljol, and the avocado really goes well with all this lovely salty codfish. Adds a sweet to the savory, to the heat of the peppers. Just altogether beautiful. But guys, a lovely savory buljol dish. If you want to get this recipe, please do follow me on my Facebook page at Calypso Kitchen.